Growing up, I thought our town had the most dedicated construction workers ever. Every few months, my dad would wake me and my brother up at 3 a.m. with the same urgent whisper, "Pack your bags, boys. Construction crew needs us to stay at Grandma's house for a few days." I'd stumble to the window, still half asleep, and see these massive work trucks with flashing lights parked all around our neighborhood, like some kind of midnight parade. The workers wore matching uniforms and had these incredibly serious faces, like they were handling the most important job in the world. They'd go door to door with clipboards, explaining to every neighbor that they needed to fix something really critical underground. Within an hour, our entire street would empty out as families packed overnight bags and headed to relatives' houses. I remember being genuinely impressed that construction happened exclusively at night. What thoughtful planning, I thought. They didn't want to disturb our school days or wake up the neighborhood with loud machinery. My 7-year-old brain found this incredibly considerate, but my dad always seemed different during these visits. He'd pace around Grandma's living room, constantly checking his phone and flipping between news channels with the volume turned way down. The blue glow from the TV would illuminate his worried face as he watched weather reports and emergency broadcasts. Whenever I asked why he looked so anxious, he'd ruffle my hair and say the workers were just being extra careful with dangerous equipment. "Better safe than sorry," he'd repeat, but his smile never quite reached his eyes. The strangest part was how the construction trucks looked completely different each time. Sometimes they were pristine white with official-looking government logos and scientific equipment mounted on top. Other times they were matte black with tinted windows and no identifying marks whatsoever. But they always had those same urgent, flashing red and blue lights cutting through the darkness, making our quiet suburban street look like a disaster zone. My brother and I would press our faces against Grandma's second-floor window, trying to spot the workers in action through the darkness, but they always seemed to finish before dawn. And by the time we got home, everything looked exactly the same as before. No torn-up streets, no new pipes, no evidence of any construction work at all. I started wondering what kind of underground project left absolutely zero visible trace. The workers themselves were another mystery. They wore full-body suits that covered them from head to toe, complete with masks that made them look like astronauts. When I mentioned this to my mom, she laughed nervously and said they were just being extra cautious about dust and dirt. But I'd watched regular construction workers my whole life, and none of them dressed like they were exploring Mars. One particularly memorable evacuation happened when I was about 9, right before Halloween. I'd been so excited to show my dad my zombie costume that I forgot all about the construction explanation. "Why do construction workers need so many police cars to help them dig?" I asked, pointing out the window at what I'd counted as at least 8 patrol cars mixed in with the work trucks. My dad went completely quiet for a long moment, staring at the TV screen where a weatherman was pointing at colorful maps. His face went pale, and he gripped the armrest of Grandma's old recliner so tightly his knuckles turned white. Finally, he sat down next to me and said, "Sometimes grown-up jobs are more complicated than they look, buddy. The important thing is that everyone stays safe." That answer never really satisfied me, but something in his tone told me not to push further. Kids have a way of accepting weird explanations when they come from adults they trust, especially when those adults look genuinely scared. The evacuations continued through middle school, always following the same eerie pattern. Middle-of-the-night wake-up calls, serious-faced workers in spacesuits, empty streets that felt like ghost towns, and nervous parents who tried desperately to act like everything was perfectly normal. My friends and I would joke about our neighborhood's mysterious construction problems, creating elaborate theories about secret government projects or underground alien bases. The routine became almost comforting in its predictability. Dad would get the call, we'd grab our pre-packed bags, and off we'd go to spend a few days eating Grandma's homemade cookies and playing board games. I started looking forward to these unexpected mini vacations, even if the adults always seemed on edge. It wasn't until sophomore year of high school that I learned the truth during a history lesson about industrial disasters in our area. Our entire neighborhood was built on an old chemical plant site that had been hastily covered with dirt and sold to developers in the 1970s. Every few years, toxic hydrogen sulfide gas would seep up from underground pockets, creating invisible clouds that could kill within minutes of exposure. The workers were hazmat teams, and those police cars were there because people had died from exposure in the past, including a family of 4 who didn't evacuate in time back in 1998. My parents spent years protecting us from knowing we lived on poison ground.